Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Litepanels webinar. My name is Tim Duff, and I am the Technical Sales and Partner Development Manager for Litepanels. I also happen to be a co-founder of Liticians who partnered with Litepanels on developing the Apollo Bridge and Apollo Control app, which we'll be focusing on in our discussion today. We're also very pleased to have the opportunity to speak with Coleman McClung today. Coleman is the studio operations manager at AMP Studios in Dallas, Texas, and they are one of our earliest adopters of the Apollo ecosystem and have really done some amazing things with the platform. We'll be chatting with him about his decision to light their entire White Cyc stage using only Gemini 2x1 fixtures being run by the Apollo, and we'll find out how that's benefited their various customers, and learn even a little bit about how to light a green screen key without using any paint or green screen fabric at all. So that's going to be really interesting. And we'll also get an actual in-person live studio demo of the system so you can really get a sense of how it all works. Now, before we get started, I just want to mention that if you do have any questions during the session, please put them into the Q&A box or in the chat box at the bottom of the screen. I will be monitoring them as we go, and I'll try to answer and cover as many of these questions that we can as possible. And before we dive into our conversation with Coleman, I'm going to give a quick overview of the Apollo system and the Apollo Bridge and Apollo app. So, Apollo really gives you full and complete lighting control within an instant. It can do any number of things as a platform. The Apollo Bridge itself is a very robust wireless system. It uses dual band Wi-Fi with unique frequency hopping technology, both 2G and 4G Wi-Fi. So you'll get an incredibly strong signal when connecting to your wireless devices as well as your lighting fixtures. It is compatible with all standard DMX fixtures and wireless DMX receivers and transmitters on the market. You can set this thing up in minutes and really great on the fly. So even if you're in a studio or on location, there are many ways that you can utilize this. And there are some really advanced networking capabilities of this device as well. There's a local area network port for connecting or building your own network with the Apollo Bridge as the backbone, and a wide area network port that allows you to actually connect and control lights remotely over very large distances. And you can go hardwired as well, as it outputs 5-pin DMX. And we'll also talk a little bit more later on about the Apollo Liticians Control app, which is really a very innovative and user-friendly platform to control all of your lights from an iPad or your iPhone without the need to really be trained in all the technical aspects of being a console operator. So that's kind of just a little overview on the Apollo. And now I'm very excited to move on and get started about our conversation with Coleman. Before I introduce Coleman himself, I'm going to show a quick little reel that gives you a better sense of just what AMP Studios is all about and some of the great work that they've been able to do. All right, well, that was a great video, really beautiful work in there. And without much further ado, I'd like to introduce Coleman McClung. Coleman, thank you very much for joining us today.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So let's dive right in. Now, I'd love to hear, from you a little bit more about AMP Studios and your role there and the kind of work that you do that we got just a quick little sample of.
Sure. So, yeah, we shot that sample video. It's part of a recent demo reel, but we obviously wanted to include the Litepanels Apollo bridge as much as possible because it's really let us control our studio in ways we weren't expecting. So, what I do here is I'm the studio operations manager, and I was lucky enough to be here when we built this stage. I'm currently sitting in Studio A, and it's just been I've been very grateful to be able to be a part of building the stage and choosing lights and control systems and everything else.
So when you built this studio a couple of years ago, tell me a little bit about what your objectives were and some of the challenges that you were facing around, designing this to be utilized for the type of productions that you house at AMP.
Sure. Well, we have quite a few different kinds of productions that roll through here. We can have very large, 40-person crew, network TV stuff, or we can have corporate videos or small interviews. It really runs the gamut of what we have in here. So when we were building our own stage, coming from like a little pocket stage downtown Dallas, we wanted to really do something that was a little greener, something that was power efficient, even though we would run larger lights in here. We wanted to be able to tout ourselves as an LED stage whenever possible. And we wanted to make sure that any crew that came in, either they had what they needed to set up their own stuff, or we had things ready for them right out of the gate. So those were our
Okay,
big pushes.
got it, got it. So then what led you to choosing the Gemini 2x1 as your lighting source and the Apollo control system as your control platform?
Well, we definitely didn't start out with the Apollo, and that probably made the Apollo look a lot better once we got to it. So we started out very traditionally with an ETC board, which worked great and was a great setup. But for me, and not being a board operator, even though we brought in freelance and everything else, to me, it was just a little slow. You have your setups, you jumping from project to project. Um, it takes a little bit of time, and that works for some clients, but it doesn't work for everyone. And as far as the Geminis go, I looked at a lot of lights. I looked at very traditional grid setups. I looked at more modern things and what was coming down the line. And I just liked the throw. I liked the controllability right out of the gate, being able to update it and fix things as we go. Everything about it was just really attractive to me. And I mean, I went all in. We
Now,
did our entire stage in it.
that's great. That's great. Now, were there hesitations with going with kind of a wireless based system, especially, in terms of your control device being, kind of free floating? Was that part of the reason that, you were starting with a console?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm just really traditional. Ever since I came out of film school, I was all about Mo Richardson lights and the old tungsten way of doing things. And if you're in a live event, you have a board and you have a board operator. That's just how I was taught. So coming up and looking for new ideas and new things, I did want to go a traditionally DMX wired route, and it's what appealed to me out of the gate. And again, what we found is that even though it gave us a lot of options, it just wasn't very quick. It wasn't, slight footed. So once we learned about the Apollo system and saw what it could really do and how I could hand it off to a client and they could learn it in a few minutes, that was when I really saw that this is probably what we are going to stick with.
So tell me a little bit about the installation process and setup process with all your Geminis, and you get this Apollo system now. So I mean, how was that experience, especially compared to what you had dealt with in, setting up and programming a console?
Well, it really made me appreciate the UI of the app because I personally was working mostly in the app, connecting directly to the lights. So for me, being able to build a universe and add in lights and add in the different settings and have a whole new project in less than 20 minutes, um, that was what showed me that we could do different capabilities for each client. So in the original install, on day 2 of installing the system, having everything working, nothing's dropping out, which that's my biggest problem with other wireless systems is connecting endlessly over and over and over again to their apps. We didn't have that issue with this.
Well, that's great. That's great. So, talking a little bit more about the app itself. I mean, what is it about the UI that, is so appealing, not just to you as a studio manager, but I mean, you're in situations where there's all these different types of crews coming in, and you're gonna, you have other stuff that you have to do during the day, so you can't really sit and, essentially be another crew member. So how has that kind of handoff worked, and what has been some of the responses from some of your clients in using the Apollo app?
Well, I think the UI is really intuitive. And even the parts of it that generally a client or a DP that you hired wouldn't see, again, the setup process and messing with the universes, again, it just makes sense when you walk someone through it. There's a lot of times now where I can't be on set. I'm managing a lot of things from home or just remotely, and being able to, again, teach my studio managers who then teach the DP, and there's nothing lost in translation. I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Okay, all right. So now, what, so saying that you have, okay, all these different clients with different needs. So, it's a white site studio. There's a lot of things you can do in a white site studio. So you have, just what you have, a nice white light right now. You can utilize color on the wall. A lot of times you'll paint it black, paint it for green screen, and these types of kind of rental scenarios where different client comes in. So, talking a little bit about the Geminis as well, how are you able to kind of take advantage of the RGBW that the Gemini has while being controlled from the Apollo, and how that's able to take advantage of all of those great color parameters that clients have access to on the fixtures?
Well, I could show you.
Great. Let's get into it. Let's get a little demo. Okay, so what are we looking at here? I mean, I know,
So
but
let's go back.
for the sake of the audience.
So this is all the projects we have right now. Um, there you go. Okay. So this is all the projects we
Yeah.
have right now. And you can see we just have a lot of setups because every client, we can really make a new project. You can just duplicate it or use something that's worked for someone else really well. And once we go into one, we have all of our lights hooked up, which if you see our lights, there we go. So you can see all our lights above. We
Yep.
have everything
So those are all your
tied in,
Geminis, right?
labeled. Yeah, exactly. So, and you can select one or you can select all of them at the same time, jump in, and then you have full control. So you can dim the lights, go up with them, change color, temperature. And for us, talking about how much a studio needs to adapt to each client, part of that is painting. And before, we were constantly painting to green screen or blue. And now, honestly, for a lot of clients, we just switch to green and then
Wow.
blue and then back to daylight. And so for us, having a client be able to come in and do pickup green screen shots is kind of incredible. Or having them even do green screen without us knowing. That's happened with several clients. That's never happened in any other studio I've worked in.
Wow. So yeah, let's kind of talk about that a little bit more. That was a great demo, and I mean, it just the lighting just looks beautiful there, and yeah, it's amazing. You go from that daylight look to that tungsten so seamlessly and so quickly. Now talking about green screen. So yeah, tell us a little bit more, kind of some detail in terms of what typically you go through as a studio owner when you would do the traditional approach to, okay, you had a client who Monday through Wednesday is going to be shooting and just wants this white cyc. And then for the weekend, someone's coming in just to do green screen. So what is that process like typically?
So generally, I'll talk to their client ahead of time. I'll get in touch with their DPs, their gaffers, and figure out what their setups are, what days they need them on. And generally, I'll build a project for them out of the gate. No matter what they're doing, we put them on a separate project so that they can set their lights and walk away from it. Because you can switch to another project, turn everything off, and then go back to your original project, and it's just ready, comes up. So that's how we generally switch between clients. And then certain clients can have multiple projects. So they can just go throughout their setups of a day as a separate project and switch in between setting up lights.
So, and before you had something like the Apollo, then how would you have to kind of, go through that process? I mean, I assume it would take, a lot more time because, I mean, it takes what, like a day or so to paint, especially one that large. I got to think that paint is kind of expensive. So have you felt that you've been able to actually utilize your space more in terms of reducing the turnaround in the studio between different types of shoots?
I mean, tremendously. We're talking completely cut pre-light days, us being able to get into our own studio, shoot something internally in between client shoots. Just not painting back and forth. It saved us and saved our clients thousands and thousands of dollars. Again, it doesn't work specifically for everyone in a certain way, but it's worked enough that it just makes my job as a studio manager way easier. It really relieves a lot of DPs who work with us regularly. It's
That's
really
great.
just taken time off the table.
Excellent. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are kind of skeptical about the idea of, using a light on a white surface as your green screen key, as opposed to, again, that, more traditional way that people are used to of either getting a
Of
fabric that
course.
they, a curtain or a paint. So could you speak a little bit to kind of the quality of a Gemini as the key itself, and even some of the techniques that you've had to develop in that process?
Sure. So you definitely need to have someone who's willing to tweak it, work with the light, knowing that it's a green light instead of a reflected wall. Obviously, it has different advantages and disadvantages. But personally, I don't feel like it adds a huge amount of time versus working with reflected light. Some of the things you have to think about if you're doing head to toe, you have to worry about what's underneath them. But to me, painting a sample underneath a person versus painting an entire wall, you're still saving a lot of time there. We've also done some unique things like having a reflective surface underneath talent, so it's actually reflecting the wall behind them. And as far as the quality of a lit green screen, it's probably one of the best keys we've ever pulled off someone. Individual strands of hair off someone with tons and tons of long hair. It really comes off easy.
So how do you get that? Like, how do you achieve that green in the Apollo app that is perfect for your green screen key? I talk because I believe you use RGBW mode, and then
Mm-hmm.
do you just bring the green all the way up? Is it that easy?
Well, most modern post processing systems can really use any color, but I personally did a lot of research into dialing down the number, and I probably didn't have to do as much research as I did because I could put a purple, and most programs could just pull from it easy.
Cool, cool. Now, you told me about a little trick you did kind of on location, with a little. So, I mean, this is something that isn't just kind of, you know, restricted to being in a studio, correct? Have you used this technique kind of outside of the actual space?
Well, it's a very small little box. You guys, you guys have really nailed that part of it. So you can throw it in a backpack, and if you have the connections to the lights, it's very easy to use on a location shoot. It really, the lack of interference, it being a Wi-Fi based system, it really lets you go into almost any other environment without having too many issues. I have yet to have anything drop out on location, even if it's a setup we had 30 minutes to put it together, and you just connect everything up and it remembers everything. So it really makes it easy for you.
Now, do you have a lot of situations where, you talk about all these different projects that, you build out in the app so you basically set your light, all your settings, all your colors, and then, you have that saved on your iPad or can even save it on a file. Have you had situations where customers have come back or have you, utilized the ability to share those projects for other devices? Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we have a few clients who we don't delete their projects because they come in, they shoot, and I mean, at this point, they set up their normal lights, and our pre-lit cyc is already at everything they need it to be. Specifically, we have one large-scale client who does a Christmas party, and we haven't done that in a couple of years, obviously, but we still have 3 modes saved for them. That is just their big Christmas party event setup with multiple rooms and effects and timing. That's all saved in there, and they use it every time they come in.
Wow, so the Apollo, great at parties too. That we might
Yeah, I
have to
mean, for
work
an
that
event
into
space,
the
even.
marketing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Now,
Well, I mean,
talk a little bit
specifically.
more. Oh,
Oh,
go ahead. Go
sorry. I
ahead,
just want to tell one more anecdote.
please.
We did have the Dallas Cowboys in our stage at one point, and we were able to turn everything silver and blue for them. So that was really impressive to them.
That's great. Oh yeah, they must have loved that. Well, yeah, I mean it's great for branding because color's everything, right? I mean that's the identity behind, I'm sure a majority of the clients that you work with. So I'm sure
Yeah, we
being
do
able
a
to
lot of
razzle
corporate,
dazzle. Yeah.
and their branding is super important to them.
So you were able to kind of dye those colors and then not only save the project, but I would imagine utilizing what you can with the swatch, which maybe, it might be cool to demo some swatch capability where you can actually save a color and then build it and have it, set as your favorite. Would you mind showing that off quickly for
Sure.
another little demonstration? And while Coleman's, getting that set up, again, I encourage anybody who has any questions to please put them into the chat, and we're happy to kind of answer things as we continue to go along here. Maybe let us know your favorite color. We can try to emulate it.
Okay,
Okay,
so you
so
can
there's your
see
color
we're
wheel,
in,
right?
yep, color wheel. And obviously you can add in color there and go around the entire wheel. But then if you go over to swatches, there's quite a few legacy colors, plenty of other ones that are set. But if you find one you like, you can save the swatch, enter a name for it, and then when you go back to the color wheel, it's saved right here. So for us, that's
So
our green, blue, and white. Those are huge.
kind of your key looks. Yep. So
Yeah.
you're able to save that swatch, favorite it, so then it shows up on your color wheel screen. And then when you actually select the swatch, you're able to still have access to the color wheel and even tweak off of that
Yeah.
color, correct?
So if I go to green,
That's great.
I can then start adjusting on the fly or, desaturate it and then go back to reset to what I
Then always go
saved.
back to it.
Yeah,
Excellent, excellent. Now, do you have anything saved in there that utilizes some of the effects? I always see on Instagram you guys are
absolutely.
having fun. So yeah, let's talk. And with the effects on the Apollo, you don't even have to adjust anything on the lights. It'll just go to that mode.
Yeah, once you set up the project and you have the effects ready to go, you can then manually control them and do everything you want. So I will say we've had a few things. So this is kind of just when we're touring or showing off the ability of the lights, It's great to just do kind of a dance party mode. We also had a very specific ask for a runway style shoot.
Oh,
So I created this project that has, you can't see them, they're not coming up super well on camera, but it has like photography flashes throughout it. Let's see. Um, yeah, it's just, we have so many projects for different clients. It just really has let us do quite a bit. You know, we've got color
I mean, it's
saved.
amazing to see all the different setups that you're able to just on the fly switch through in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, and we've done lightning effects and fire effects, and being able to control that from the ground and manually dial it in. It's just really helpful.
Great, great. So, you have any exciting things coming up that you maybe
Yeah,
would
we're
want to
just
speak to? What's the future looking like for AMP Studios?
for us, we are kind of all about innovation, and we work a lot in the VR and AR space. So for us, this is our Studio A. This is our main production stage. We're hoping to have some emerging technologies on a separate stage. So some things that maybe aren't in Dallas and aren't in Texas, but would give people an opportunity to work more in virtual environments and in VR environments and almost like a capture stage. So we're working a lot with that right now and are really excited about a lot of these new emerging technologies in stagecraft.
Excellent. Now, what's your take on, this movement towards, mixed reality, augmented reality production? And I mean, how is that kind of changing not only your client base, but how what the needs are in the studio? And, how does a system like you have kind of tailor or work within those type of production workflows?
Well, for me, I've come up with green screen. I've come up with all these different ways to try to bring other elements into a production. You know, virtual elements or elements that don't exist. I'm very excited about XR and mixed reality just because having your talent on set with some of these incredible elements that don't exist and being able to act off of them or being able to light from something that doesn't exist, from a sun that is virtual or something like that, to me, that's the future of stages. And with what we're working with, our LED lights and the Apollo bridge, it's like we're already taking a stepping stone towards that. Having the kind of control and being able to move things around and do setups virtually within the app, it's kind of been a testing ground for these other technologies.
Great. So we actually have a question that came in kind of, off of that, which is, having this, instant green screen capability within the studio, and not having to fully commit to, painting, the time and cost of painting an entire white site. Does that ability for your customers kind of encourage them more to maybe take the leap and try, green screen workflows and, test more virtual production type environments where, again, in more traditional situations, they really have to fully commit? Do you find that that's, encouraging people to kind of take the leap a little bit?
Yeah, we've had several shoots that have come in, and this is kind of towards their question. But they built half the set they were planning to because once they saw it in camera, they could just switch over to green screen and catch certain angles or certain things they weren't planning on. So they were able to either do more of an infinite stage or add elements to their stage they weren't planning to, or just do something entirely different than what they came through the door with. So that's kind of
Okay.
like that. We've had multiple clients who have shot something on green screen to be safe. They if they wanted to add an element later, they're like, let's just catch
Sure.
a green screen shot and we'll chroma it in.
Wow. Very interesting. So another question that just came in is, how do you control the spill, from the green light when you're doing a green screen? What are some of the techniques that you do to, make sure that you're not getting any of that green bleed on your talent?
Spill is definitely a thing, and I'm going to be watching my DP behind the camera right now because he definitely cares about spill. But to me, you definitely get spill, and it's one of those things you have to watch out for. It's not too much different than light hitting a painted wall and the reflections that it already gives off. It can be stronger. It can be in different places than you're expecting. But it's just one of those things you have to think about. And I think in the long run, you're still saving a lot of time overall. So if you're adding a few more flags or you're doing a little more control to your lighting setup, I think that when you weigh them, it's worth it.
So essentially, you're just, you want to be back off away from the wall a bit, and yeah, utilize barn
Sure.
doors or flags, and just keep an eye on it essentially. But
Yeah, it helps if
you're
you're a
saying
larger
there's still
stage, you can
more
pull people
flexibility.
away. But we've done this in teeny tiny environments. And, I've done it actually at conferences in a booth, and we've pulled a key live in a booth with other lighting coming in and spill from other places. Most of the time, your own lighting will kill that spill. So that's really been where we've focused on it.
So how large is your studio? Actually, that was another question that just came through. What are the dimensions of Studio A? And do you
It's a
have a kind
4,000.
of recommendation for how you build your site in terms of any paint or any tips just from a general sense?
Sure. Well, we're a 4,000 square foot space in here. About the white is 2,500 square feet of that. And we have a 40 by 35-foot wall with two 45-degree curves in the corner. And that gives us just a little better audio echo. Um, and obviously, as high as you can get it, we found that height is super important for any stage. We have about a 14-foot grid, and then 16 feet to the ceiling above that. So,
Got
for
it.
us, we still paint quite a bit, but it's really just refreshing and touch ups and things like that.
Got it. Got it. So height, very important. That was a key thing that I took away there. Now, another question is, when customers kind of come in, like you mentioned, with some of their own equipment and lights, have, they've been able to, kind of connect those other lights that they may have to the Apollo and utilize that within what you already have set up for, just their particular shoot.
Oh yeah. Literally yesterday, we were coming off a shoot, and they brought a car into our stage, and they wanted to do a big box, just as a big soft box over top. And so they moved our Geminis around, and we added four more to create this box. And then all we did was relabel things in the app, add a few lights, and it was fully controllable. So
Great.
it added
That's excellent.
20 minutes to their setup time.
That's it. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty quick. That's really quick. Another question that we have in the chat here is if that was an iPad you were controlling with. I can just answer that. Yes, the app is
Yes.
currently, iOS, so the iPad is a great platform. The iPad Mini, I personally like because you can just grab it in one hand. I actually have mine here for my stuff, so it's nice to palm it. You could even fit it in your pocket, and there are situations where the iPhone is really useful, especially if you're, just one person with, needing to light from camera and just have a couple lights. The iPhone UI is also a great way, but it is iOS, and yeah, what iPad exactly did you have?
Yeah, so we have an iPad Pro for our studio setup, but we have an iPhone that we take out in the field.
Great, great. All right. If there's any other questions, please enter them in now. But I think that covers most of it. Now, Coleman, any kind of, while we're waiting to see if there's any other thoughts, any kind of last words or anything you would like to speak about in terms of, your experience with light panels, or with AMP in general, please, I'll leave it to you before we close things out.
No, I've just been very happy to work with the system and you know help in any way that we can. And to me, I feel like we're getting the better part of the deal. All we market with this. We've had so many clients come in and be able to pull off something they weren't expected just because we had this in house. Um, just anecdotally, we had a client a couple weeks ago who was so worried about coming into a pre-lit stage because they thought they'd have to spend their entire day up in the grid, re-rigging everything, moving things around. And once we showed them the app and how we could control it, it literally solved all their problems. So,
Great, great.
it's been really easy for us and really great.
Okay, well, I spoke a little too soon because two questions just came in, but thank you for that. Um, the two other questions. So first is about working with other brands besides light panels brands. I think the assumption is that the system does not, but I'll just jump in and say that it works pretty much with any DMX controllable fixture, and for pretty much all the leading LED lighting brands, you can have pretty much full control. Doesn't necessarily work with every single mode that a light has, but for any of your standard CCT, RGBW, HSI, most effects modes, you can work in conjunction with multiple brands at once. And there's even an update coming very soon where there's some new lights that have come out that will be adding to the profile library as well. So that's something to keep an eye out that I'll speak to. And then the other question is, can you use wireless functionality in conjunction with hardwired DMX lighting board? I can kind of tackle this one as well because I have dealt with this. So you can, and I'll ask you after I answer if you've done this, but you can have the console hardwired to the Apollo bridge, and you could hardwire lights through XLR as well as utilizing the wireless DMX at the same time. And you could even go wireless to one light that has a receiver and then daisy chain with DMX to multiple lights. So you can kind of do wireless or hardwired or a combination of both, at least in connecting to the fixtures. Now, back to the console, you can hardwire a console in, and then you can have an iPad connected as well, but you don't want to use them at the same time because of the nature of DMX. You'll be kind of, you could get some crosstalk, so they'll be sending multiple signals, which will, confuse the lights, so to speak. But if you take a passing of the baton approach, it's very quick and easy to have all your lights being run by the console, and then you would just, maybe power down the console and then pull out your iPad and open the app, and then that will jump to that. It will be some more functionality that's being, looked at in terms of cross compatibility, but it is easy to at least, pass the baton. And I wonder if you've had any situations where clients have, utilized that.
Yeah, I have had a specific instance, um, which just might be what you said didn't work super well, but we had an instance where a client brought in their own control system, and then we just, for whatever reason, we needed two Apollos running at the same time. So we were switching between the Apollos and then going into the app of this other system and controlling all three universes. And for us, we didn't have any hiccups with it. But controlling two
Right.
stages at the same time, and then these other lights from an entirely different brand with no interference, all on the same iPad. And that was a week-long shoot.
Wow, great. Yeah, so utilizing multiple iPads, you can have multiple kind of control platforms. You kind of want to, it seems like, isolate one light to one Apollo to one either iPad or console. There was a question about multiple iPads at once. Currently, you'll only be able to, and the Lighticians app will actually recognize if another iPad logs onto the network and opens the app. You can only have one controlling at the same time, but you have the ability to actually hand it off to the other iPad. So again, there is the ability to pass the baton, but you're not going to have multiple control points working at once on the same exact system. But that's really impressive that you had that scenario where you were, had multiple stages and multiple brands with multiple controls just by kind of splitting them up on different Apollos. There is a lot you can do by adding a second or third Apollo to your network, getting another universe of DMX out, having, your network kind of spread over a larger space because you can have them on the same Wi-Fi and even hardwire them together via Ethernet. So there is a lot of things that you can do in terms of scaling your network up beyond just a single universe, single stage. So I definitely encourage people to try that. If they have some of those needs, and of course, you can reach out to us directly at Litepanels for questions about some of that more complex, lighting network systems capabilities.
Yeah, we've done a lot of experimenting here.
I love it. Yeah, you guys, I always love seeing what you're able to do. You've been pushing the limits and giving us great feedback, and it's been great to kind of share as we grow with the system and then what you're able to do. And it has been a great partnership for a long time. So, you as a customer and partner have just been incredibly invaluable to us. So, Coleman, I want to thank you again so much for taking the time out of your day and for your crew that did an excellent job preparing us for what was, I think the best visual demo that we've done with the Apollo and Gemini system. So, give all them a pat on the back for us. And, with that, I think that concludes this webinar. And thank you all again. The Apollo Bridge is available for sale. The Litepanels Apollo Control app is downloadable in the App Store with Apple for free. Check out studios at amp.com. There's a link to their site in the chat right now. If you're in Dallas, give Coleman a call. Come check the space out. Maybe the Cowboys will be there, maybe not. But if you need a place to shoot, I mean, they're the place to be in town. So definitely check them out. Check them out on Instagram. We are going to post this video on the Litepanels website. And there are links to their Instagram handle as well. Coleman, if you want to plug, any of your, social, go right ahead.
Well, you can follow us Amp Studios on Twitter, Instagram, kind of see more of what we're doing. I'm at Coleman McClung. I post film things on there every once in a while, but no, studios at amp.com is the main place to see our studios and everything that we do.
All right. Well, thanks again, Coleman and AMP team. Thank you all for joining the webinar, and we'll see you all on the next one.
All right. Thanks, Tim.